Hi everyone, in this video I will show you how to take an ISO file and mount it onto a USB pen so that, for example, you might want to go and put that in a computer to install Windows, or as in my example, take it and install ESXi from VMware vSphere onto my new 4-unit home lab server. So what kind of software will we use for this today? Well, I'm going to use a piece of software called Rufus. I already opened up the browser here, rufus.ie. This is where you will be able to go and grab a copy. It's completely for free. There's an installable version and also a portable version, which is what I will be using today. Now, what are we going to install this on? Well, for my purposes, I'm going to be using this SanDisk UltraFit 32GB pen drive. And why this one? Because it's just so tiny. I like it. It's also not going to poke out too much on the back side of the physical server. But let's plug it in. And we can see the actual disk itself is 32 gigabytes. I would argue that for ESXi, probably 4 gigabytes, maybe 8 should be enough. For Windows, I guess it depends a little bit on which version you're using. Maybe 8 or even 16 gigabytes these days could potentially be needed. So now we have it in. You can see it's an empty disk. It doesn't have to be. Rufus can actually just overwrite it. And we'll click select. I'll select the ISO file that I've downloaded from VMware.com. You can see here it already puts in the ISO file. It shows the label as of the ISO, and you can pick the partition scheme. Now, I know sometimes, for example, with VMware, if I select GPT, there can be some boot issues here. So I'm going to pick MBR, master boot record, and this way it will work on both BIOS and UEFI. So let's hit the start button here. Yes, it will destroy everything. That's completely fine. And this should not take more than a minute or so even. Basically, it's only about 700 or so megabytes. And once we're done here, which should be very shortly, what I'm going to do is, now it's done. I'm going to take the USB pen, unplug it, go and plug it into the physical server, restart it, and then I'll show the remote console from here. All right, I've managed to get the USB stick back into the physical server. Managed to wait through the boot time, which is quite significant because of the volume of memory inside. But as you can see here, we have a BIOS and we're ready to do a override boot on the SanDisk USB pen here. So I'm going to pick that. Now, just from experience, once we pick this, it will look like nothing is happening here, but definitely it is actually working in the back end. Just quite a few processes that it's going through, so this is completely fine. But if this is a sort of more normal computer, should I say desktop computer, laptop or something like that, then usually the boot process will be just flying right through. Now, I do apologize a little bit for the screen resolution here on the console, but that's literally the remote console here from Fujitsu to this server. And I believe the console resolution is something like 640 by 480, so definitely a very low resolution. It doesn't really matter because once we get this booted up, and later in some of the later videos, I'll be using some much higher resolutions. Here we see, I'm just going to interrupt the automatic boot process, that indeed it did work, and that'll be the end of this video here. Now, I hope you enjoyed it, found it useful. Please see me in the next video where I'll show you how to actually go through the installation process of ESXi.